See, a lot of you guys are coming up with very, very good questions, and we promise to get to as many questions as possible. So I would ask everybody to hang on to their questions, and inshallah, when we go to live question and answer, you can type up your questions in the public chat area. We're going to go to the next slide, and then shortly thereafter we'll be at the Q&As, which we're at now. Excellent. So your questions, our answers. So we'll start with Kenan, I hope I pronounced that correctly, from Canada, who says, I am a student at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Canada, studying commerce and finance. I have an opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia and I'm interested in making the transition from conventional to Islamic finance. From your experience, what is the best way for me to get into the Islamic finance industry in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region in general? Well, I will take a first jab at that, and then I'll ask Yusuf to follow up. We'll try to keep our answers brief, and if you have follow-up questions, then you can actually email us. And obviously we can speak one-on-one by phone or in person if you happen to be in Dubai. Well, I happened to be in Canada last week, and we met with the government, and there is certainly a lot of movement towards Islamic finance happening in Canada. So if you have an opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia, that's great, but you should certainly look at Toronto and speak to the Ontario government, in particular the Financing Authority and the big five banks, and try to get a handle on what's actually happening there and when things are going to happen, because it is certainly the case that if you have an early start in your country, then you're obviously better off than people who come in later. So in terms of an opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia, that's great. Obviously that market is well established. And we found that from our experience at Ethica in terms of helping people with recruitment, we found that the best way to get into the industry is to demonstrate interest. So to be a banker or a student who has no demonstrated experience or interest in Islamic finance, you're starting off with a slight handicap compared to somebody, for instance, who has done a consulting project, an internship, even contributed to a publication or a conference, attended a course or received certification, or obviously received something like a degree. So these are all examples of demonstrating one's own interest. A good starting point, if you happen to be in Saudi Arabia on visit, is informational interviews conducted at banks. Inshallah we can, at a later time, we can communicate about opportunities within Saudi Arabia and point you in that direction. So there are those opportunities. And Yusuf, who also transitioned into the industry several years ago and is now based in the UAE, can also shed some light for Kenan.
I definitely, in terms of what Atif has said, and I would definitely echo everything he said. And I think maybe just to boil it down to basic facts, you need to get the word Islamic finance on your CV. And you've got various routes, and the best thing is to get multiple routes, so that could involve publications, attending conferences, getting some sort of qualification. A qualification is important, and there are various qualifications existing. We highlighted Ethica's qualification, the various qualifications out there in the market. And to get that on your CV is definitely something that you should try and do, because the raw facts are that the industry today, although it's in dire need of personnel, there needs to be a way in which a person can distinguish himself, simply because in light of the credit crisis, recruitment isn't at the peak that it once was and may not be for the foreseeable immediate future. And so most people coming into Islamic finance industry, it's better that if they want to come into the industry, as a key, they should actually show their interest and get that word Islamic finance on their CV. Aside from just getting it on the CV, I mean, obviously the idea being that the fact that they're interested should mean that they've actually gone to, studied, or they've taken some interest by attending conferences, maybe publications, reading magazines, and so on. With regards to the GCC specifically, the institutions that exist that usually practice Islamic finance can be usually counted on literally the fingers on your hand. And what would be a good idea would be to actually visit their websites, send your CVs across, take a trip down to research the actual industries, and the banks and the institutions, and try and see how best what you'd like to do would fit in within the ethos of that institution. And usually they're fairly open in terms of people being able to come and submit their CVs and so on. I think the GCC, especially UAE, is despite the credit crisis, there is still a recruitment drive taking place.
And we're gonna. I mean, this question is we've put it at the beginning because it's general enough to inform many other questions and questioners, and that is that how to break in. And many of us who started off in the industry, I started off my banking career about 20 years ago on Wall Street at Morgan Stanley. Now, as a conventional investment banker trying to get into Islamic finance, I didn't, and these were early days. This was back in about 2001. And back then, the only way was basically to muscle your way into a bank or in front of a scholar. And a lot of the work that we did initially was unpaid, so an unpaid internship. We actually executed transactions as interns to start off with, even though we were ourselves experienced bankers. And then from there you transition into paid work. So there's a number of ways to do it.
I definitely follow that up. My own background, maybe this would be a benefit to the listeners. Unlike Atif, in the sense that I didn't actually come from a finance background. I came from a business consultancy background, and when I initially decided to look into the option of Islamic finance, the options that were open to me involved a significant pay cut, and it involved me actually, in effect, doing an internship. But what I found was it was very shortly, within the span of a year to 2 years. Simply having that experience on your CV is a huge difference in this emerging market, where as you can, as Islamic finance expands to the degree that we've outlined, close to 20%, and new markets are emerging, the demand for experience is so huge that even if you've got a year to 2 years of experience on your CV, and that may involve a degree of sacrifice, so it may involve not potentially earning or taking the benefit that you probably would have had you not gone down that route, but you will find that simply having that experience becomes a key differentiator when it comes to going in, and it's very easy to then go on to more senior positions within the industry.